This is a big deal. The fact that Jack Schmitt, really what he was trying to do was to create this massive nationwide show trial.
Yes.
Where people got caught up and criminally prosecuted for their political views. He thought he was going to be some hero in this story. I mean, he's really a villain, and there's a lot of other villains too.
A lot of people kind of compare it to the Tea Party targeting with the IRS, but I think this even goes further. Hello, I'm Alex Sawyer. Joining me for this sit-down session is Missouri Senator Eric Schmitt. He served as Attorney General of his home state before joining the Senate in 2023. He recently authored a new book, New York Times bestseller, The Last Line of Defense: How to Beat the Left in Court. Thank you, Senator, for taking some time to talk to me about both law and politics. I feel like they're kind of married nowadays,
yes.
Always. First thing is, I covered the Supreme Court when you had your case there against the Biden administration. Obviously pressuring social media companies to censor. It was back related to 2020 election stuff, COVID stuff. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court didn't really weigh the merits because it was a whole standing issue. Have there been any guardrails in place? Have the social media companies agreed to anything? Is there any status with what legislation has taken place? Like, what's the latest with that?
Yeah, I think honestly the lasting legacy of that case, and which was a big part of the book, The Last Line of Defense, How to Beat the Left in Court, was the exposing of it. I mean, if you go back, when we filed the case in May of 2022, this was viewed as a conspiracy theory, and the conservatives were whining about this, and it was lampooned, honestly, when we filed it. We made a very important, I think, strategic decision in the case to seek discovery first. So we sued the Biden administration, all these different agencies, and the judge granted us discovery. So we got these reams and reams and tens of thousands of emails, text messages, these secret portals that existed.
Yes.
And really, then, you got to remember, this is before Elon Musk had bought Twitter and before the Twitter files. So for the first time, the American public saw the links that which big government worked with big tech to silence the voices of Americans.
It was scary.
It really was. It was Orwellian, honestly. And so we took the deposition of Fauci. We took the deposition of Elvis Chan. There was a lot going on in that case. But I like to believe that it sort of began a little bit, or at least a part of this renaissance of free speech now. Mm-hmm. Growing up, I've always been conservative. And in college, I kind of lamented the fact that liberals kind of had the high ground on free speech. That's not the case anymore.
Right?
That's not the case anymore.
Different now.
And so I think this
they don't like dissent.
Yeah, I think this is and by the way, I think an important part of this coalition now for Republicans. I mean, you think of the diffusion of information on podcasts now, Rogan, all these other people
New media.
Right. They want to consume information and make their own decisions. And at the heart of it, also a subject of the book, during COVID, we saw what the left was willing to do with just a little bit of power to silence people. There was no room for debate, and I think there's a backlash to all of that we talk a lot about in the book as well.
I have to ask you, news of the day, it seems, has always been the Epstein files. Mm-hmm. As a former AG, should we expect anything from them? Is it just kind of, has it been so long that there wouldn't be any sort of indictments? I mean, do you expect anything to come out of it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure the statute of limitations has run on a lot of stuff if there was stuff. I mean, I think it's important to remember there was a case against Epstein, over a decade ago.
Right, in Florida.
And so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I always supported let's release all the credible information, get have transparency. So we're going to see that. It'll be interesting. Just some from emails that we've seen so far, like Hakeem Jeffries is trying to meet with Jeffrey Epstein. Did he meet with him? Where did he meet with him? So I think there's going to be a lot of that comes out of it.
Things that Democrats maybe didn't think about ahead of time.
But again, at the heart of it, I think the victims should always be front and center here, protected to the degree that they can be protected. But if there were bad actors here, they ought to be exposed.
Yes. I also, you were chairman of the Republican Attorney General Association. So I wanted to ask you, during that time as chairman, you were a target basically of Arctic frost.
Yeah.
Do you expect any sort of hearing on this? Like, what's the next step with some accountability there?
Yeah, I think if you dig into Arctic frost, right, 3 days after President Trump announces he's running again, Jack Schmitt is, along with the Atlanta prosecution, along with the Alvin Bragg prosecution in New York, you just saw this weaponization we've never seen before in this country to get Trump put him in jail for the rest of his life. But what Arctic Frost sort of reveals is that this was a huge dragnet that encompassed a lot of other individuals and organizations whose only crime was they were Republicans.
Right.
And we can't let this happen again. So, we're in conversations with Chairman Grassley, Ron Johnson, and others, I think, on the Judiciary Committee to have Watergate-style hearings on this, because there's more there. The only things we know about this so far are from whistleblowers who've come forward.
Right.
So we want to work with the Department of Justice, get as much of that information out there and see where it goes.
So I've heard there seems to be a push to hold some sort of hearing.
Yeah.
Does leadership seem open to that?
Yeah, I think so. I think one thing that we want to do, because I can't wait for Jack Smith to come in and testify.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you expect that will happen? Okay.
But I think that before that happens, we need to make sure we have all the information, right? What you don't want to have is that Jack Smith's the only one who's been privy to a lot of this information and sealed grand jury testimony, right? And then we're sort of in the dark and just kind of asking questions where we don't have all the information. So I think we should take the time, get all the information, but we absolutely should move forward with hearings here. This is, I think it gets in a new 24-hour news cycle. Some of this stuff just kind of gets lost. This is a big deal.
Yes.
This is a big deal. The fact that Jack Smith, really what he was trying to do was to create this massive nationwide show trial.
Yes.
Where people got caught up and criminally prosecuted for their political views. He thought he was going to be some hero in this story. He's really a villain, and there's a lot of other villains too.
A lot of people kind of compare it to the Tea Party targeting with the IRS, but I think this even goes further. I mean, like the threat of, prosecution, jail time. Not that people don't have issues with IRS, but this was just so widespread, and especially targeting lawmakers, senators,
attorneys general who represented their states, Turning Point USA. Again, these are people who have, different political views than Jack Smith and Joe Biden. But the idea that in the United States of America, you were going to weaponize and try to throw these people in prison, because this was a criminal inquiry, is insane.
Let me ask you, so one of the things I really want to get your opinion on is Judge Boasberg.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's been back and forth with the administration. My belief is the latest is he's going after contempt with the administration.
Yeah.
After already having a little bit of evidence that has come out about his own comments and some bias there. Our immigration reporter noted too that it seems that there's a Massachusetts Judge Young had called for Americans to resist Trump. Okay. Yeah. I think there was an issue in New York this week. A judge ruled ICE can't make courthouse arrests. Other than an impeachment resolution, how do we hold judicial activism to account? Do you think there could be any sort of movement with a judicial impeachment?
I do. I think Boasberg is the poster child for what a rogue judge is right now in 2025. In a few specific examples. One is he gives a speech at a judicial conference, essentially calling for the resistance of President Trump's agenda. That's totally inappropriate for a judge. He's also the guy then that, turn the planes around guy, which is what this contempt hearing is all about. Totally over his skis on this thing. This is not his role. The president has core Article 2 powers for deportations, but he wanted to insert himself. The interesting thing about that case is, in DC, there's an assignment judge every day that rotates. He wasn't the assignment judge. He gets this case while he's on vacation at 1 a.m. Mm-hmm. How did he get that case? Was he tipped off? There's a lot of questions. And then, of course, with Arctic Frost, he's the guy that issues the gag order that violates federal law, that when a senator is being subpoenaed for the phone records, like is what happened with Jack Smith, they're supposed to be notified.
Notified, the lawmaker, yes.
And he said no, because these lawmakers will destroy evidence and tamper with witnesses based on nothing except he's a partisan and he doesn't want Republicans to get a heads up on this thing. So I think those are just a few examples of why impeachment should move forward in the House. And then we led a letter earlier this week with other Republican colleagues to the presiding judge of the DC Circuit saying, while that's pending, Boasberg should be suspended. He shouldn't be able to continue to hear cases. So hopefully there's some accountability coming.
You also have called out Antifa, okay, and you want it designated, I believe, a foreign terror group, correct? Yeah. What's your take on some of the anti-ICE protests that are going on? Things are getting more intense. It used to be, I did an interview in the past with Todd Lyons, and we talked a little bit about how these arrests, it used to be more of the illegal immigrants that would resist, or there would be problems there. Now it seems like American citizens are involved with this and having to face arrests because of these protests and getting involved in obstruction. Do you think that this is obviously a dangerous trend? Is Antifa behind this? Who's organizing this?
So let's talk about a couple things. First is deportations under immigration law are nothing new, right? Bill Clinton deported like 12 million people, okay? The issue is in the last 4 or 5 years, Joe Biden didn't deport, he just didn't want to enforce immigration laws. 20 million people came into this country. So President Trump has said, and ran on this, by the way, we're going to meet mass migration with mass deportations. That's what's happening. The modern Democrat Party actually just doesn't believe in borders. That's the truth. They think anybody can be here for any reason and they should never have to go back home. And so now you're seeing this tension where elected leaders are calling for this sort of resistance. So a few things have happened. 2 million people have been deported, 1.6 million self-deportations, about 515,000 deportations. But assaults on ICE agents are up 1,000%. Vehicular attacks on ICE agents are up 1,600%. This is a dangerous sort of thing that's happening right now because you've got people who've been radicalized to believe that ICE agents who have families, who are doing their jobs and enforcing the laws that have been passed by Republicans and Democrats in this town are doing their jobs. So it's a really dangerous situation. Antifa's role specifically is they're kind of the paramilitary arm of the left. Mm-hmm. It's a diffused organization. They've been declared a domestic terrorist organization by President Trump, which is a good thing. They have a network of safe houses and training. In Portland, you see this. In Chicago, you see this. But we've called on Secretary Rubio, and he designated 4 organizations in Europe as foreign terrorist organizations who are Antifa related. So what does this do? It freezes their assets. It freezes their money. It's a crime to work with these people. We have to treat Antifa for what it is, which is a terrorist organization. Mm-hmm. I mean, they throw firecrackers out to lure ICE agents out and try to murder them and assault them. We can't tolerate that in this country.
You've been asked a bunch about the drug boats.
Yeah.
And I know you've supported the president's move there, I believe. What about if he were to go into Venezuela? Do you see talk about that?
Yeah, I don't think that's really, I think where we're at right now is sort of this renewed Monroe Doctrine, where we have a special focus on our own hemisphere. And the truth is, because we've effectively sealed the border on land, a lot of these cartels now are moving really dangerous drugs like fentanyl and everything else on the high seas. And so I think President Trump's sending a clear message. This is our, under the Monroe Doctrine, you can't do that. And if you do it, we're going to blow your boats out of the water to kingdom come. He has every right under core Article 2 powers to do that. I think that's really where the debate is right now.
Okay, my last question is a little bit about H-1B visas and foreign workers. I know you've made your own call to rethink, I think it's called the Optional Practical Training Program.
Yes, OPT.
Okay, can you explain a little bit about that and what you think should happen? Where are you also with what the president's comments have been with H-1B?
Yeah, I'll try to sum this up quickly.
I know, it's really a topic that could be a whole interview.
Where I grew up, in Missouri, a blue collar area, those folks got hit, my neighbors got hit with the double whammy of their jobs got shipped overseas, and then as they're looking for new jobs, their wages get undercut through illegal immigration, right? That's what happened. Now you're seeing this on the white collar front too, right? The H-1B abuses are real, meaning American workers who can do the job, there's foreign workers who are coming in under H-1B, they're being forced to train them, and their only value they have, it's not any special skill, is that they're cheaper and they're more compliant.
Right.
We have to change that. And then on OPT, this is a sort of a student visa mill. Universities like it because they pay full freight. They're given 12 or a couple of years worth of time to work. And I think corporations have abused this too because they don't have to pay payroll taxes for these folks. And there are Americans who can do the job. Some of the highest unemployment rates right now are people coming out with engineering degrees, physics degrees.
Right.
So I don't buy the idea that Americans aren't prepared to do these jobs. They are, but their wages are being undercut, their opportunities are being undercut through some of the abuses of these programs.
Yeah, and that I believe is what we've heard through the American First agenda a lot. Yep. Exactly what you said.
Yep.
So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
I always enjoy talking to you.
Likewise.